Hey guys, today, good old-fashioned 2D life is going to be hitting you with some real knowledge. So I was thinking to myself, and I'm like, what topic should I cover? Like, what's a good topic? And I'm like, I gotta cover something controversial. My friend Nathaniel, he's covering dating advice. You should all watch that video. He's dated one person before, so that's a lot of advice that he could be giving you. It was like for a couple of years too, so that's a long time. So go ahead and watch that video. But I'm like, you know what? I've never dated anybody, and that subject for me is just it doesn't get people's like it doesn't get people mad. That's what I want, a reaction. I want a good reaction. So I'm like, I got to pick something controversial. People talk about they don't talk about controversial issues a lot. They argue about controversial issues, but they never actually get down and discuss. It's usually just people throwing around the same old slogans that have been used for 50 years. That's all they do. They just throw them back and forth like, "Oh yeah, abortion's murder," and they're like, "No, you need to support a woman's right to choose," and then it never goes any deeper than that. It's just people with billboards, protesting each other's protests. And so today I'm going to try to structure the conversation a little bit differently. Hopefully you guys will get something out of it, maybe change a few minds, maybe at least get people to see the other perspective, because I feel like there's not a lot of that going on. It's a lot of people on the far sides, and they just look at the other side and they're like, oh, the right, they don't care about women because because it's like the religious right, so they want to suppress women. And then it's the right looking, and they're like, oh, they don't care about children. It's just the leftists. They want to murder babies. And so you kind of got to start a discussion and try not to. Obviously, there's going to be emotions involved, but try to look at it from a rational perspective as well. You can get your emotions involved. Just don't go too crazy with it, okay? Emotions are fine to a certain extent, but some people, they don't know how to handle them. So I'm going to talk about my stance on abortion and why I hold that. So, first, I am pro-life. I am anti-abortion. Whoa. Like, anytime you say your stance on abortion, it's going to get some people mad, and I hope it does. Honestly, if you're mad, comment down below. Comment the first thing that you think about me when I said that. Just the meanest thing you'd think of. Comment it down below. I can take it, honestly. Honestly, I'd just be happy to get any comments at all. But back to the subject, why I am pro-life and how I am pro-life, because there's different ways. Some people have different places where they think the cutoff line should be. I think the cutoff line should just be straight up conception, which is probably the most conservative conservative stance you could take, besides like the Catholic Church saying no contraceptives. And I'm going to discuss why I think contraceptives should be allowed. First, I think contraceptives should be allowed because I don't think that human population should continue expanding without limit. I also don't think there's anything wrong with contraceptives, so all the benefits that they provide, they're not outweighed by the negatives. And I think it's different with abortion. Contraceptives, you're preventing life. With abortion, you're killing life, at least in my perspective. And so preventing life, I have no problem with, because I feel like you have to protect the life that's already here, but you have no obligation to bring life that isn't already here into being. And that's how I distinguish the two. Now, the Catholic Church, obviously, they have a really crazy stance on it. They say no contraception at all. Sex should be only for procreation. And, I get their argument. Actually, no, I don't really get their argument. I don't even get their biblical argument for it, because I had to write a paper on abortion. And so I looked for Catholic sources I had to write a paper on contraception. And so I looked at Catholic sources on it. And they literally had one Bible verse, like one biblical story to back them up. And it was a guy who, in the Old Testament, he was supposed to have sex with his brother's wife, because that's how their culture was set up, so that if the brother died, then you would take his wife in so that she would be cared for and whatever. And so what he did was he was having sex with her, and then he pulled out and ejaculated onto the floor. And so God punished him for that. And I feel like they take that one verse and just they just try to just straight apply it to now without giving any of the actual historical context. The problem with what this guy did in the context of Jewish society is he did not fulfill his obligation. The obligation to give his brother children. Honestly, that's what it was, because when you married your brother's wife, it was so that he would have a line of children to his own. And so he was dishonoring his family, and he was denying his obligation. It's not that him masturbating onto the floor, that's not a sin with it, like in of itself. Nowhere in the Bible is just like, wasting semen is wrong. Any semen needs to create baby. It's he didn't fulfill his obligation, and he dishonored his family. And that's the meaning of the story. But they take that to mean like, yeah, the contraceptives that weren't even around back then, we're gonna somehow like just straight apply that to today. And I don't understand where they're coming from with that. If they have any other verses, if there's any Catholics watching, leave some more verses down below. I don't understand where you're coming from. So if you could help me understand, that'd be great. Honestly, the Catholic Church, though, who knows? Maybe in a couple years, like the Pope will just be like, oh, decree, contraceptives are okay now. And because there's no biblical basis to the Catholic Church, or not as much biblical basis for the Catholic Church, then they'll be like, oh, okay, well, whatever the Pope says. Honestly, this is just going to be the most aggravating video I think anybody's ever going to watch in their entire life. Any group that you're a part of is just going to be like me throwing like insults at you. And I'm not trying to do that. It's just what I believe, and I feel like you got to get your opinions out there. And hopefully people aren't too emotionally triggered, because honestly that's not what I'm going for. I'm just trying to say what I believe, and I know it's controversial, but people can comment back. And so where do I draw the line? I obviously don't draw the line at contraception, because you're not destroying human life there. You're just preventing its creation. And obviously there's a limit to the amount of human life which can be sustained. And so I think it's reasonable to put a limit on the amount of humans coming into the world. However, it is not all right to exterminate humans that are already here. You see this in history, and you know it's pretty bleak. And honestly, people compare abortion to like the amount of Jews that Hitler killed, and the amount of people that died under Stalin, and all this other stuff. And I feel like that's used to get a reaction, but also there is some sort of parallel between the two, because what you see in both instances is a deprioritization of life over other things. Social advancement in the case of Hitler, and what leftist people would call choice today. And I feel like that's what it comes down to. Because everybody you ask, if you ask them, are you pro-life, then obviously they're gonna think of the abortion debate. But if you say, are you an advocate for life, or do you value human life, everybody's gonna say yes, pretty much. If you walk up to somebody and like, do you like more choice? Do you like more freedom? A lot of people are gonna say yes. And it doesn't necessarily correlate to their ideas on abortion. And that's because the abortion debate isn't whether you're pro-life or whether you're pro-choice. It's where you put them on your list of priorities. People say, yeah, I'm pro-life, and I just put life above a woman's right to choose. And you kind of have to say that. And that's why abortion is such a controversial issue. Because it's not so, oh, well, there's no negatives on either side. There's negatives on both sides. Either side that you choose, you're going to lose something. You're either going to lose a greater amount of freedom if you say you're pro-life, because then women aren't going to be allowed to do anything for those 9 months. That's a lot of responsibility to take on. And then on the life side, if you say you're pro-choice, then you're saying life isn't as important as liberty, and so you're putting liberty over life. And I feel like why I choose pro-life stance is because anybody who is alive, by my definition, um, deserves the chance for liberty. Of course, they're dependent then, but you can't say that anybody who is dependent is devoid of any meaning or any value in society, because that's when you get into the deeper, darker corners of human thinking. You can't say, well, they're dependent, and so I have a right to kill them. Anybody who is dependent on me is not worthy of life, or not worthy of life for sure, and I have the choice to kill them. Because if you're going to say that, then when does independence start? And is independence a good, like, is that a good like marker? Is it should our list of priorities as a society be convenience and then life? And there's obviously aspects of liberty to that, but I believe that even the human life within the woman has a right to liberty as well. And here is where I draw the line for life. It's at contraception. And I feel like everybody needs to draw the line, because some people, there's even politicians who support, well, once it comes out of the womb, then it's a real life. And that's sort of a weird stance to take, because it's pretty much fully developed. It has brain activity. It can dream. It has all this other stuff. It's pretty much a human. It's just inside another human. And I feel like that's a really there's no stable foundation for that stance. And so some people say viability. And viability is when it could be like when it could live out of the womb. But why should that be it? Just because it's more dependent on the mother, why does it coming out into the world, why does that matter? I don't get where the basis for that is. Why I draw the line at conception is because it's the most logical. It has its own genetic set. It has its own identity. It doesn't think. It doesn't do any of this stuff. But it has the potential for all those different things. It has the potential to be its own individual human, and so that's where I draw the line. And you can come into some tricky business when you draw the line there, because people talk about, well, what about stem cell research? You have embryonic stem cell research, and that would not be allowed under this particular view. And I would say, yeah. And sometimes you got to make some sacrifices. As I said, it's all priorities. And so if you got to draw the line. First of all, if you comment down below, say where you draw the line, because honestly, that's what people don't do. They say they talk about they throw their stuff back and forth, but they never say what they actually believe. They just say they're pro-choice. But I feel like they don't know what that actually means. Is it once it comes out of the womb, then it's a life? Once it becomes fully independent? Once it's 18 years of age? Where do you draw the line? Because honestly, you need to know where the other person draws the line before you have a debate with them. And so why I say that embryonic stem cell research, obviously you shouldn't have that. I draw the line at conception. Why I say you have to sacrifice that, because if you're going to say you draw the line at conception, which I think is the most consistent, the most stable place to draw the line, if you're going to say conception is the line, then you have to stick with it. And you can't say, well, I'm going to let it go in this one stance because science is over life. And that's where you get into some very dark places when you say, well, the utility of this human life's body is placed over the value of the actual human life. And I feel like that's a really bad place to go to. And that's why I say, honestly, just because science can go someplace doesn't mean that we should. I think morality, not even like a religious morality, just a morality in general, you have to hold on to morals as a society if you're going to survive. And you can't say, well, this is gonna heal X amount of people, and so, oh frick. you can't make the choice for that other human life, because then you're taking away from their liberty. And honestly, that's all my thoughts on the subject right now. And I feel like, you know what, some people could say some other stuff, and I would consider it. I might even change my mind. I don't think I'm going to. But just comment down below what your thoughts are on it. This is pretty much be rambling for 15 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed. As always, this is my guest star, Lucy, in all my videos. Every single video she is in. She's not very happy with me right now. But like, share, and subscribe, guys, and I hope you have a wonderful week.